Alright, hello. Welcome to this ultra budget Melffy deck profile. So I'm a huge fan of Melffy's, but when I started getting into Yu-Gi-Oh, which was not that long ago, honestly, um, I didn't want to spend a lot of money on the game. So the only deck that I could really think to build was Melffy's. And I wanted to make this video just kind of as a guide for anyone who's looking to build a fun Yu-Gi-Oh deck, a cute Yu-Gi-Oh deck, but not spend too much on the game. So to start us off, we're playing a Melffy Rabbit package. And this is kind of our substitute for Rescue Cat because we're running Rescue Rabbit with it. And this Rescue Rabbit's a great starter that just allows us to grab two level 2s out of the deck, which allows us to go into any of our rank 2s. So that's why Melffy Rabbit's in here. Also, an incredibly cute card. Then we've got the cornerstone of the deck, 3 Melffy Wally. This card allows you to search your deck for 2 Melffys on your opponent's turn, which is just phenomenal. It allows you to get a puppy to get a Kalantosa pop, potentially a pony late game, or a caddy just to cycle another rescue rabbit. This is just a phenomenal card. Then we've got 2 Sealy, or sorry, I should say 2 Melffy Penny. This is what allows us to go into our Fearful Melffys. Um, Just a generally pretty good card. It can also attach itself to Xyz monsters from the graveyard. So, a decent card in this deck, but I'm only playing 2 since we're not terribly reliant on Merry Melffys. Then we've got the old staple, Melffy Puppy. This is what gets you Kalantosa. This is kind of the bread and butter of the deck. Not too much to talk about here. Then we've got the 3 Melffy Caddy. This allows you to search your beasts, so this can get you a Rescue Rabbit for the follow-up. This can get you a Fabled Cerbero if you're looking to make one of the Fabled Synchro monsters. This can get you Valeraphon for later in the game. It's just a generally pretty good card. Then Melffy Fenny. This one's less good, but because it summons from hand instead of deck. But when paired with Melffy Caddy, it's essentially a puppy. So I thought it was worth running one just for the name. And then Melffy Pony, this one gets you a beast back from your discard pile. This can recycle your Melffy Wallies late game. This can recycle your Kalantosas for Fenny. Just a generally decent card to have. Then we've got our starters, as I talked about before. We've got 3 Rescue Rabbit. This is an incredibly cheap option that essentially does Rescue Cat's job, but just it requires 3 bricks in the deck, 3 Melffy Rabbies. So that's why we're on 42 cards. The Rabbies take up a little bit of space. But again, this just makes a rank 2. Then we've got Nimble Beaver, which these are also a way to make a rank 2. You summon one of these and it summons another one out of your deck, or graveyard. So each one of these is just an individual rank 2 on it by itself. So this is 6 rank 2s just right here. And then we've got 3 Kalantosa. This card is just ridiculous. When it's summoned by the effect of a beast monster, you can target 1 card on the field, destroy that target card, not monster, 1 card on the field. And there's also not a once per turn on this. So when you can get a Kalantosa summoned by a puppy, a Kalantosa summoned by Joyous Melffys, this you can just get out of control fast. Then we've got 2 Valeraphon. This kind of serves dual purposes. Number 1, it's a tuner, which means you can go into Cheerful Melffys with this. Number 2, it's a level 2 beast that can summon another level 2 beast. So later in the game, once you've got something in your discard pile and a card to spare in your hand, this is also a rank 2. So that's like 8 rank 2s right here. Then we've got 2 the Fabled Cerbero. This is an interesting pick in the deck, but I decided to play it because when you discard this off of Valeraphon, it's just crazy value. Being able to special summon this uh, and special summon off of this, so that this can potentially be 3 level 2s just from 1 card. And it also allows us to go into the Fabled Synchro Monsters, which I think are pretty good for this deck, and are also a great budget option. Alright, now we've got the best card in the entire deck, Obedient Schools. This summons 3 level 2 beasts from your deck without taking up your normal summon. All it does is lock you into beasts, which is all we play anyway. So if these 8 starters weren't enough, now you've got 3 starters that get you 3 monsters. So Although Obedient School is a little bit more on the pricey side, I think it's like $1.50 or $2 these days. This card is mandatory, and it's the only moderately expensive card in the deck. Then we've got 3 Melffy Staring Contest. This is great because since we play so many bricks, we play 3 Melffy Rabby. We play the Valeriphons are bricks early game. The Kalentoses are always pretty much bricks, and you don't really want to see these two early game. Uh, Melffy Staring Contest allows you to mulligan those back in to search for any Melffy. So this essentially makes your bricks no longer bricks. Then we've got 1 Melffy Hide and Seek. This is just destruction protection for all of your beast monsters. And it also has kind of a mini Pot of Avarice draw effect, which is kind of nice. Then we've got 1 Melffy Tag. This is an in-archetype quick effect monster reborn, which is just generally useful. This can sometimes be the extender you need to get like 3 rank 2s in play. For example, if you get Obedient School plus a Rescue Rabbit, that can get you 6 monsters for 3 rank 2s, which is just crazy. Then we're running 1 Called by the Grave. I'm not sure on this, since we don't run hand traps, so there's no... oh, sorry. We're not worried about protecting our own stuff from, like, Gamma, but if your opponent plays hand traps, then this can be useful. So I'm still not set on it, but I think it's worth keeping. Then we've got 1 Melffy Playhouse. This is a great card because you can search it off of Melffy the Forest, and it also, it's just a great, it takes materials off of your Xyz monsters, and it can bounce your opponent's monsters, and it also gives you a little damage buff, which can be useful for getting over some hard to hit over threats. And then in place of Imperm or any kind of effect negation, we've got Lost Wind, which just is a phenomenal battle trap for budget decks, or not battle trap, just a phenomenal trap for battle uh, for for budget decks because it allows you to not only negate a monster's effect, but also attack it, have its attack, and if they special summon from the extra deck, you can set it back. So this is like 6 negates in 3 cards. Okay, so that's it for the main deck. Moving on to the extra deck, we've got 4 Synchro Monsters. We've got 2 Cheerful Melffys, or I should say Merry Melffys. Yeah, these are just your target off of Penny. They give you a bounce and a free XZ summon. It's just a great card. Then we've got 1 Fabled Unicorn. This is one of your payoffs for playing the Fabled Cerberus. If you have the same number of cards in your hand, so this is kind of situational, but if you have the same number of cards in your hand as your opponent, you negate all cards and effects activated by your opponent and destroy those cards, which is just a ridiculous effect. So if you're able to pull that off, this is insane. And then we've got 1, the Fabled Kadabi. This one's also pretty situational, but if you happen to have 0 cards in your hands, this cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. And since we play no hand traps, this is just a really big guy that just kind of sits there. And when you combine it with something like Melffy Playhouse, this card can get big fast. Alright, then we've got our rank 2s, and this is kind of the heart of the deck. First, we've got 2 Melffy of the Forest. This is, probably our best card. It's a negate, it's a searcher. It searches any Melffy card, so you can get your Melffy spells and traps with this, as well as your Melffy monsters. Just a phenomenal card. And then we've got Joyous Melffys, 2 of this. You can overlay this with like a Kalantosa and a Puppy, or a Kalantosa and a Wally, or Kalantosa plus any Melffy. And then when you use its effect to summon back the monsters, you actually do get the Kalantosa pop off that, which is just phenomenal. Then we're playing 1 Melffy Mommy. This is kind of a bad card because it requires so much investment to get such little payoff, but it can be crazy if the opponent has like a 6,000 attack access code and you summon Melffy Mommy and deal 6,300 damage to them, which is just, crazy. Then we've got 1 Sky Cavalry Centauria. This is technically non-targeted removal, so probably worth playing. It's one of your only options. Then we've got Crumble Logos and Phantom Knights of the Cursed Javelin. These do essentially the same thing. They're just targeted negation. on one monster. Very, very specific targeted removal. And then Onibimaru Soul Sweeper sort of does the same thing, except this one vanishes instead of negating. So, again, very specific targeted removal. Then we've got one Mannequin Cat. This card is very situationally good if your opponent is also playing beasts or earth monsters, because it gets you a free summon. And it's also decently big. 2000 is nothing to sneeze at. And then lastly, we're playing one Dark Mist, which, it's more investment, but if you really need to get over something, Dark Mist will certainly get over it. That's what it does best. Alright, and now the side deck. This is kind of just a sample side deck. I didn't really know what to put here, but I figured we could play 3 Archfiend Marmot of Nefariousness, because technically this thing is almost as good as Melffy Rabi for this deck. It doesn't have quite as good a stat line, with, considerably less defense, and it's not a Melffy name, but it's technically a level 2 Earth Beast. So if you for some reason needed more targets for Rescue Rabbit, you could slide these in. Then we've got one Pankratops. This is great for going second. Ideally, you'd be playing Alpha the Master of Beasts instead, but that card's a couple of dollars right now, so, your 8-cent Pankratops is going to be almost as good. Then we've got one Naturia Barkion. It's no Naturia Beast, but if you're playing against something like a Lich and you really need trap negation, this is pretty easy to make with just a Valeraphon and 2 other cards. And it's also, you can make it in 1 card off of an Obedient Schooled. Then we've got one Ayers Rock Sunrise. This is just Monster Reborn for Beasts, but better. It's not much, but it's decent. 3 Twin Twisters against back row decks, because it's cheap. 3 Drowning Mirror Force. This is an incredible defensive option, especially because you can bounce your cards, which means that, say you have it 1 caddy on the field, you bounce your caddy, you get your search, but then you've got nothing on the field, then you can activate Drowning Mirror Force, which is just great. And then we've got 3 Canadia, just again another defensive option, and it has the upside of summoning itself as a level 2, which I think is pretty cool. Alright, now that's basically it for the deck profile. I'm going to come back in a minute for some test hands. Alright, starting off, we've got a test hand. This one, we're starting off with Obedient Schooled, so that's already a good sign. And we also have a Melffy Penny, which is good. We want to have one of these in our hand. A Kalantosa, Melffy Tag, this is a great extender, and a Lost Wind. So immediately what I'm thinking is Obedient Schooled gives us 3 monsters, and then Melffy Tag can give us a 4th one after we detach to search for a card. So the card we can search for is actually Melffy, the one that Melffy Staring Contest. So then we can shuffle Kalantosa back into the deck to get our Wally. So we can actually see that in action. We're going to activate Obedient Schooled. And then I'm going to go for, first, I'm going to get a Penny, because this card can attach itself in the end phase. This is really good. Then we're going to get a Kalantosa, because we definitely want to be overlaying for Kalantosa on Joyous Melffys. And then lastly, we can just get something we don't really care about. So I'm going to say, let's just go for, actually, yeah, we could actually go for a Melffy Puppy, I think. So we're going to throw those all into defense. All right, now let's start by overlaying for Joyous Melffys. Oh, oops, sorry, I wasn't supposed to do Joyous Melffys. Interesting. Okay, so that's going to change our game plan slightly. So we accidentally made Joyous, that's fine. We're going to make that in attack mode because it's got 2000 attack. Now, this could be bad, but Fortunately, we do kind of have a contingency plan. It's just not going to be pretty. So what we can do is this has, yeah. So we can normal summon, okay, do we want to normal summon Talentos or Penny? I think we want to normal summon Penny. No, let's normal summon Talentosa. I'm going to overlay two Talentosas. This is not good. This is not going to plan, but that's totally fine. So now we're going to activate this. That's going to grab us our Melffy Wally. We're just going to have to go straight for the Wally this time. Which again, that's like fine, but ideally we don't want to be doing that. And then what we can just do is we can set Lost Wind, we can set Melffy Tag, and then go to end phase and activate Melffy Wally. Okay, so what we've got here is, if we want to just kind of go over everything we've got on board, well, number one, we've got Lost Wind, but that's kind of inconsequential. It's a negate, but you know, whatever. We just drew it. Got Melffy tagged, again, kind of inconsequential. Then for the main board, we've got Melffy of the Forest plus Melffy Wallaby, or Melffy Wally. So when this card bounces to hand, crazy stuff is going to happen. Number one, we're going to get the two Melffys off of Melffy Wally. Number two, we have the option to negate a monster with like permanent negate while it's face up on the field from Melffy of the Forest. And we can also activate Melffy's Penny to go into our cheerful Melffys. Then additionally, during our opponent's main phase, we have Joyous Melffys, which if we view the cards under it, we have a Melffy Puppy, and in the graveyard we have a Calantosa. So when we activate this, we can put it back into the extra deck to summon out a Calantosa for a pop, and then a Melffy Puppy to search for another Calantosa for a pop. So that's two Calantosa pops, a negate from Melffy of the Forest, a negate from Lost Wind, and a summon of Melffy Penny to synchro summon for Merry Melffys, which then, in and of itself, is a bounce to hand, and then another summon of a Melffy Xyz monster, which could be something even like Melffy Mommy, which we could start putting materials on. So even though we misplayed, just off of one Obedient School, we got so much value. Alright, we've got a kind of interesting test hand here. As you can see, we've started with a lot of what we might normally think of as bricks, but we do have our one starter, which is totally cool. So we're going to start off with a Rescue Rabbit, activate this, and that's going to let us get our two Rabbies, which is pretty good. And then, obviously, we want to get our Melffy of the Forest, so we're going to overlay these two. I'm just going to throw this up here in the EMZ, since we don't run any links. Then we're going to activate this, that out of here. And now here's where it's really interesting. We could search for something like a Melffy Wally. That could be cool. What we could also search for is a Melffy Staring Contest. Since we do have an extra Cerberell in hand, and once we have Melffy Staring Contest, that'll allow us to continually search for new Melffy monsters. So I'm actually going to take Staring Contest. And then we're going to activate that. Now, since we have a beast in graveyard. Next turn, we're going to be able to use Calantosa and discard a Cerberell to summon three monsters. Sorry, not Calantosa, Valeraphon and discard Cerberell to summon three monsters. So that'll be good follow-up for next turn. But for now, we're going to activate Melffy Staring Contest, putting back a Cerberell. In this case, we have two options. Number one is just to grab Wallaby, or Melffy Wally, because it's a great card. But since we already have a puppy, we could also take Melffy Penny, which would get us the Synchro Summon. In this case, I think I do actually like taking Penny and having that follow-up. And then what we can just do is go end phase, activate Melffy Puppy from hand, and just throw that in defense position. Now, on our opponent's turn, we don't have a huge amount we can do, but when they summon a monster, we can activate Melffy Puppy. This gets Kalantosa from deck, so we get a pop on any card. And then additionally, we have a negate from Melffy the Forest, which is permanent, and also stops attacks. And then lastly, we do have a Melffy Sealy, or Melffy Penny, I should say, which allows us to go into Merry Melffys, which we can then get a bounce off of, and then turn this into another Melffy Xyz monster, which could be something. And since we have Melffy Penny in the discard pile, we can attach to that Xyz monster. So that could be something like another Melffy of the Forest, that could be a Joyous Melffys, that could even be a Melffy Mommy, if we wanted to go into something that we potentially invest in a little bit more.